Well, good morning, Jagendra Rana here. The names of air. This is the topic of our discussion today. The names of air. We live in a world inhabited by people with names like Anaya, Alaya, Ahana, Arav, Vivan, Ravan, Riyan, Sanvi, to name just a few. So there is a distinct phonetic universe that they reside in, and it is one that bears little relationship with the past. One thing that jumps out about how names have evolved is in how they have shared weight over the generations. So in the oldest generations, names were elaborated monuments honoring where they came from and whom they revered. So they were anchored in Sanskrit roots phonetically. They were dense with consonants and needed with muscularity and deafness of the tongue to be pronounced correctly. So a lot of them were salutations to a variety of divine inspirations. Names like Lakshmi Nabas, Bhuvneshwari Devi, or Govardhan Prasad were not merely levels, they were historians. These were names that came out of a strong connections with the past and represented a strong desire for cultural continuity. So as we move into the middle generation, the names became sleeker and less ornate. We see the emergence of names like Rajesh, Ravi, Sumit, Sangeeta, Amit. These are phonetically unfussy and seems designed for a word of transaction and everyday life. So the ideas they evoke are born out of more everyday inspirations. Names like Sanjeev, Prakash, Pankaj, Sunita, Sudha lack the grandiloquence of a Hargobind or Kamal Kishore. So they represent a balanced compromise between the ancient anchored and the modern sail. They still have a structure, but they no longer carry the weight of a social gravitational pull. But when we reach the present and the names suddenly trail off into airy escape in names like Arya, Vihan and Miraya, the phonetic profile has shifted from the solid to the gaseous. These names consist almost entirely of vowels and liquid consonants. So they are aspirated, wispy, and intentional lacking in third. They don't land audibly, they drift wispily. They are particularly indistinguishable from one another, almost formless air that floats out of the mouth. It is almost as if they are allergic to the substance itself. So this is not merely a change in fashion, but a profound psychological shift. The names are not moving towards a new identity so much as escaping from the burden of an older word. To give a child a name like Om Prakash to Vimal Devi was to hand them a heavy suitcase filled with the ghosts of their ancestors. Modern parents seems to view this kind of gravity as a liability in a world defined by a digital mobility and a nomadic capital. So what these names represents is a desire to keep the slate as blank as possible, light in meaning and airy in sound. These names are the acoustic equivalent of a transsucculent smartphone case. A name like Amara or Ahan is like a blank check for the future, a vibe rather than a definition. It can travel globally without getting identified in any tangible way. So the strange part of this movement is third, the escape from the specificity of the past has created a certain phonetic homogeneity. All these names sound the same without the mooring of consonants. They hang in their air without landing. Each name is somewhat voicious intention rather than fact. So because they have stripped away the hard consonants that provide linguistic contrast, so the names have become a blur. The mouth searches for something concrete to pronounce but finds itself adrift in dreamy vowel land, unable to find shore. The desire to give every individual a fresh starting point has made all of them sound the same. So this shift is not accidental for. It is located within a broader movement. As we move from the industrial age, where value resided in a heavy and the consequential to the information age, where value is virtual transfer of intention. So the names have followed suit. We have moved from giving names to children that rooted them to the earth to reducing them to the sky. This same slimming down is visible in other aspects of our lives, in our objects, our building, and our social lives, social ties. We live in an era of fingertips and thumb. Hard drives, disks, and buttons have given way to the cloud. Streaming and swipes, our name fittingly, are now user interfaces rather than monuments. They are the phonetic versions of the digital word. How does this change how the person views themselves? At one level, it must be enormously freeing to move, freeing to have no cultural expectations to answer. To answer to, a heavy name creates a burden of expectations. A Saroja Kumari is meant to live within a defined ecosystem of behavior and custom. So they worry the individual under the weight of a collective past, giving both security while restricting one's degrees or freedom to carry a weightless name. On the other hand, as a form of freedom that puts enormous responsibility on the individual to become somebody, to make the name consequential. So one is a spark of light detached from any particular fire, a fragment without a hole that it comes from. It represents both liberation and exile. So as the solid turns into air and the physical into two virtual names, tread softly, bellowing out into the world. These names sounds like the future because they shun the gravity of the past, but in doing so, what does the individual come into the world with, and what gives them something to do, something to hold on to? Thank you very much.